Hello friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Diana and in this video I want to talk about my story of being a strong woman and what was the cause behind it. Everything I cover on YouTube, my social medias are only my personal experience built through success, failures and pain after all of this. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a coach, I'm just telling you my story and I really hope this could resonate with someone and maybe help someone. Wait, before I start, I want to pause and say that I'm talking about the cost of being a toxically strong woman. This video is not about being an independent woman who pays her own bills. It's about being a woman who doesn't allow herself to rest, who searches for happiness in goals and success, who is always saving others and people pleasing. I remember myself before my Superwoman episode. I know what happened after, what happened during, and before I became this strong, unshakable woman. I remember myself as 18 years old, girl who is always positive, shiny, smiley, and she's just the pure happiness and kindness. And I clearly remember myself turning into negative, arrogant, physically sick, and always pissed off human being. Right now I feel like I'm back to who I was before all of that, but this time even better because now I've got the wisdom, which is actually priceless. That is why I can actually look at those times from the side right now and actually talk about it and hopefully wake up someone who also feel miserable, unhappy like I did back then. I just want to mention that I have prepared this information on my laptop, which is standing right here, and maybe time to time I will have a look at my laptop. So if you see me looking this way, just know that I'm reading it from my laptop. I just don't want to miss anything, and it's just a little easier for me because English is not my first language, as you might hear. So I really hope you understand it. This video is created for women like me 1 year ago, who are drained in daily tasks, always in rush, always trying to help others, silencing themselves for peace, afraid to talk about their needs and weakness. For those women who are constantly asked by their family, parents, co-workers for help, because they know you won't say no, because they know that you are this strong, unshakable woman who has always got their back. I hope you listen till the end, because I've also been there. And for the last 2-3 years, I was always feeling irritated. I was always in this negative mood, in this negative energy, never truly enjoying my life, never living in the moment. You ask me why? Because with this mindset of a strong and unshakable woman, you don't live life. You're running from the life. And how did I ended up saying all this to the camera right now? I went through the darkest part of my story, which gave birth to the strongest part of my soul. I did 9 months of intense therapy and almost isolated myself from the world. I spent so much time on my own, even though in the beginning it was really hard to listen to my inner voice because it carried so much pain. But somewhere deep down, I felt like if I go through it, I will end up in just different dimension. Well, and I did. To be honest, before I didn't know that human beings can actually feel this huge, vibrant happiness simply from looking at a leaf or a cloud. I can't explain this feeling, but it's something similar to if love of your life is hugging you and you just feel those endorphins, dopamines, but you feel them literally standing on the street alone. And how many times in the last months I've heard people mentioning my smile and telling me to keep it up. And I felt like that was a sign. This was a sign for me that I did something right. And those compliments were the best compliments of my entire life, because people noticing not my look, not my success, but my inner happiness is priceless. But I have to admit that this was hard work. I wouldn't lie right now if I say that I worked on my inner world 3-5 hours daily for the last 9 months. I really did. I wrote hundreds of pages in my healing journal. I did a lot of practices based on both psychology and spirituality. I did a lot of meditations. I was practicing gratitude, not because someone told me to do this, but because I felt the difference. And I felt like I invested so much time not to just be happy on my own, but also to share it with others. So that is why I'm sharing it with you today. And this video is for both you and me 1 year ago. Version of me 1 year ago would be so proud to see me like this right now, to see me happy, smiling, and in peace. And I know how hard it was for her back then, especially after being diagnosed with autoimmune disease. I remember myself fighting every single day, but I didn't give up. To be honest, back then I didn't know that there is an option to give up. I am so grateful for this part of my personality. Even though a lot of times this unshakable part of me brought me a lot of pain, but when the doctor said that I have lupus, which is autoimmune disease, and I remember I told myself, this is not my story. Me, I could overcome even this. And I did. After I've been diagnosed, I started to do very strict dieting and listening to self-healing audiobooks like Joe Dispenza. And to be honest, I can't be more thankful for myself back then. If not that strong woman, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So no, I'm not judging anyone. I'm not judging myself for being a strong woman. Every personality trait has pros and cons. I just want to share my story because maybe you can relate and maybe you can use it for your future and maybe you can change something. I'm 27 right now and last year I've got divorced and it all started from there. There is when I started to reflect on myself. It hit me the hardest when I was 26. When from the outside my life looked like a dream. I was running my own business, traveling the world, and I had a husband at that time. But the superwoman phase broke me to pieces and eventually led to even autoimmune conditions. I was so miserable. Why? Because I was hating myself. Because every single day I was doing something I don't want to do. I was pissed off by everything. By every email, by every call, by every person, by every noise. I would not lie if I say that everything triggered me back then. I didn't feel anything close to peace and happiness like I do right now. I was so emotionally frozen because I was living in survival mode for years. Every single day I was choosing other people instead of choosing myself. I used to chase success and money, and I got it all, and none of it actually made me happy. And to be honest, I would say that those things even made me feel worse, because it was always a game of chasing something more. This strong woman image was so toxic for myself. I was always trying to please others and save other people. I was always thinking about my family, my partner, my business, my team, my goals. Why? Because I thought that I was capable of anything. But I have never deeply thought about myself. Maybe from the outside it looked like I was thinking a lot about myself. But to be honest, I was always running out from my thoughts and from my deepest feelings. And I feel like this is a trap a lot of people are in right now. But once you get out of it and heal and watch the world from your own eyes and heart without worrying about others' opinion, you start to notice. Notice what? Notice life. Butterflies, flowers, sky, clouds, kids, people's smiles. And for me, I felt like this was a sign I'm living the life again, not escaping it. If only at 18 years old I knew that I should be manifesting energy and feeling inside, but not material stuff. To be honest, back then I didn't even know that unhappiness is possible. I never thought that I could end up in this place. You might think, how can she be miserable traveling the world and having money for all her stuff? But I feel like this is the lie a lot of people live in right now. With money and success, most of the time comes responsibilities and stress. And I feel like for women, where world also expect us to be feminine, light and smiling, those things are nearly impossible to mix. Unless you are born with an old soul and already know how life works. Or you already have failed and learn from it. Long story short, so you can understand my background. My ex-husband and I, we built everything together from the scratch with almost zero investments. We were both very young when we started the business. He was 23 and I was 19. When I was 22, we already bought a big house without the mortgage. And back then we already had enough savings to invest in passive income and never work again. And at those times we lived in Ukraine, and then the war started and we kind of had to start over again. Honestly, it was already for me 5 years of non-stop work, and back then I was already falling apart. And especially with the war and my family spread all around the world, I felt so broken. Also, my mom got sick in Ukraine, living near the front line, and because of her treatment she couldn't leave the city, and all this was very mentally exhausting for me. But still, I was traveling the world, I had money, but inside I felt so bad. I can't even explain how bad. I was always stuck in my daily tasks, thinking about the family, thinking about the war, thinking about the problems, and it was exhausting. And to be honest, it was kind of hard for me to write this script because it brought me back to those times. And the interesting fact while writing this script, that I felt stiffness in my arms the same way I felt stiffness when I was diagnosed with the autoimmune disease. And here is one more proof that our body remembers everything. With this being said, all the information I share in this video is very personal, but I felt like it saved my life, and back then I was literally dying spiritually and physically. Once again, I want to say I'm not a coach, I'm not a therapist, it's just my story. I'm not promoting any specific lifestyle because I understand it, how many women are struggling to pay their bills while also raising kids, and sometimes without any help and support. And I'm also a woman who pays her bills, but in my opinion, being an independent woman and being toxically strong woman who always trying to please someone are two different things. And I really want to see more happy and positive women in this world, because I truly believe that we are all born kind and positive, but sometimes life shows us another way, and sometimes it's hard to realize that something is off. And if you recognize yourself in my story, please give yourself some time to self-reflect on this. Maybe you can change something. Also, I would really appreciate it if you could share this video, like this video, because I really hope more women watch this video and hear my thoughts, because from my own behavior I realized that all this shame, guilt, and pain only feed our ego. And unfortunately, when we live through ego, we definitely don't make this world a better place. And many times, children that are raised in this environment become harsh, which eventually builds society who lives through ego. I believe that if we all try to not live through ego, but live from the heart, we can all make the big impact for this world. And hopefully, maybe one day with less harm and pain. And I know how many women are on the same page as I was, but we often hear that if a woman chooses to be strong, it's only her choice. Well, on the surface, yes, but if you try to dig deeper, most of the time people around her and society pushes to live her this way. And most of the time she lives like that because maybe she's just scared. She's scared to be shamed. She's scared to be punished. She's scared to be called dumb, lazy, stupid, weak. Most of the time this woman has been told for her entire childhood that she needs to be strong, she needs to be independent, she can't fail, she needs to support and help others, and she lives in this loop for her entire life, never even having an option to look at herself from another angle. Then she chooses a partner who mirrors all her fears, and maybe his voice sounds like her mother's or father's voice, telling her to always be strong, independent, and never ask for help. Although being independent is very important, but it should never be mixed with people pleasing, which actually comes from fear of being rejected. Since I was 17, I lived on my own money and never asking for help. When I was a kid, I did gymnastics for 10 years and I knew how to deal with pain. Honestly, I feel like this all raised me like a perfect warrior, but that warrior eventually turned against herself. I remember I was afraid to ask for help. You ask me why? Because simply when I was telling this, no one understood me. They all knew me as a super strong and mentally stable person, and when I was saying all those things, maybe they felt like I was manipulating, or they could laugh, saying that they also live not the easy life. This was a loop with no exit, because once you show yourself as a strong and independent woman, they start to think that you are unshakable, that you are unbreakable, that you have no emotions, that you are not a human, and then you're left on your own. Just you and your feelings. Because why? Because anyway they won't get it. So what is this all about? Are those really my choices? Or maybe choices impacted by my traumas and childhood wounds? Yes, they are my choices, but they are made under influence and fear. And only when those traumas and wounds are healed does the true you start to speak. And you know what is the scariest part of being a strong woman? People start to take advantage from your power, to see people's real intentions, try to say no to the things that you used to say yes to, and that you were always doing, and try to explain that you are tired, try to explain that you cannot do it anymore, and watch their behavior. This will show you whenever they are with you because they love you and value you, or because they benefit from you. And yes, that would be painful. Not only because you see their true intentions, but because you have been known them for years. And for years you have been living in rose-colored lenses. And it's you who didn't see it from the beginning. And this is the most painful part of it, because it's only your responsibility to admit that you were wrong and change something, or keep living the same way until you fell apart, like I did. Yes, it was hard. Yes, it took me years to realize that I was literally dying spiritually, while acting strong and unshakable woman. Why I was always chasing success so much. Why I always acted cool when I was falling apart. Because I didn't allow myself to be weak. Never. Because unfortunately my weakness was never understood. And most of the times it was judged. So I had to wear a mask of a strong and unshakable woman. This was the only way to survive back then. But not anymore. I don't chase validation or love anymore. I validate and love myself for who I am. For the kind, funny, open-minded person as I see myself. I love myself for my personality, not for my achievements. I don't need to be a strong woman anymore to be loved or respected. Because if someone loves me for that, it's not love. They're just taking advantage. That's it. I am thankful for everything in my life because the darkest part of my story gave the birth to the strongest part of my soul. Because now when I took off that superpower cape, I finally started to live. Finally can enjoy coffee without thinking of unread emails, unanswered calls, or someone needing my help. None of those things ever made me smile. I smile now when I notice life, when I notice the beauty around me. And this beauty can only be seen when you no longer need to pretend to be strong. I finally live. I don't escape life. I'm 27 now and I still have my whole life ahead. But I'm no longer manifesting money or success. I know how to build business. I know how to invest money. I know how to build teams. I know how to achieve goals. But I'm done with it. Now I want to experience life itself. From now on, I am manifesting feeling of love, happiness and peace within me for the rest of my life. I know life has ups and downs, but the main goal is happiness. Yes, I still run my business, but not in the same way I used to run it before. Yes, I still help those I love, but not because I feel they can't survive without me. Yes, I still listen to others, but now I see their true intentions and don't take every word personally, because I know life is a mirror. Yes, I'm still full of love and empathy, even more than before, but now only for those who value it. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you see any similarities between my and your story, try to dig deeper. Baby, you don't need to chase love and happiness from work, success or money. I would really appreciate it if you could like this video, share this video and follow my channel. See you!